How to Create a Glitch Monologues Season 35 Chapter 3. This is Season 35 of How to Create a Glitch in the Matrix Monologues Episode 3. In this episode, we will be bringing together the last two episodes with our understanding of film media. To begin, in the past two episodes, we talked about how in every interaction with another, the other acts as a gateway to four distinct spatial universes, plus that of spatial location. In other words, the plate of the hands, posture, voice and face, each represent distinct narratives which correspond to parallel universes. Each universe possesses its own conventionality, defined by the nature of the plate. For example, the plate of the face will possess a contextual meaning and also a meaning which corresponds to impulses which you both affirm internally and act out. The plate of the hands, at the bottom end of the spectrum, corresponds to impulses which are non-consensual, that is, which you have had, unconsciously, but which you haven't affirmed or negated. The point is, that in our interactions with each other, we can transit through each of the five spatial plates into a distinct universe with a distinct narrative. Each narrative corresponds to a different universe. Now, with this episode, one would like to explain why film media seems to resolve internal ideological conflicts in us, freeing up our impulses from negation. Films are constructs of our imagination. They are constructed out of the narratives that correspond to each of the five spatial plates. They are reflections, redirections, through the intersections of the actors with each other according to the narratives of each of the plates. Let me give you an example. Since we know that the plate of the face corresponds to narratives we affirm internally and act on, narratives which correspond to those impulses, to the effectuation of those impulses, will populate a given form of film narrative corresponding to some time period prior to viewing. Likewise, we know the plate of the hands corresponds to non-consensual narratives, that is, narratives we neither affirm nor negate, but which exist within the confines of our minds in the recent past. Which is to say that films which effectuate those impulses will populate themselves prior to viewing. But the key point is that the narratives contained in any film are not objective. They are shaped by the lens through which we view the film. So if we are on the plate of the face, we will see the narrative which corresponds to that plate, likewise for any other plate. In other words, the stratification of our perceptions occurs within the context of media we consume, just as surely as it reflects the content of the conversations we have with another. All of this being said, the actors themselves do not necessarily exist on the same level as each other or ourselves. It is possible for an actor to consciously believe they are working a menial job whilst they film a movie in which they play a gangster. There is a lack of unanimity of expression and consciousnesses. All of this understood, it becomes clear now why watching movies has the impact of unworking our negated impulses. Since films are mere constructs, created by our minds, out of the intersectional narratives between the players, who might not even know they are players. That's the end of the podcast for today. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment and subscribe.